Hey, what's going on, y'all? Let's talk about a few things that is going on right now in Detroit. Let's get to the first one. The first one is we have Kresge Foundation moving their headquarters to Detroit as part of a $180 million investment. For those of you that know about Kresge, you know that this is huge, right? This is huge because Kresge is a major player in the current ecosystem of Detroit. They originally had headquarters in Detroit years ago, moved out to the suburbs, to Troy, and now they're investing back into Detroit by moving their headquarters to Marygrove campus. As you can see, this is an amazingly beautiful campus. The Marygrove campus is now basically they call it the Marygrove Conservancy, which is basically a P20. And P20 basically says like from pre-K all the way up to the 20th grade, which is some form of college. So this is a partnership between Detroit Public Schools, which is called DPSCD, the University of Michigan, and Kresge. And I was at this event today. A lot of phenomenal people that was there. A lot of the Kresge individuals that played a role in them actually investing in the Marygrove campus was there today, and they kind of told and illustrated the story about how Kresge got involved in Marygrove from the first place. And so Marygrove is a historically a college, but what happened is like any other college, enrollment was down, and you need enrollment to pay for operations. And so when your overhead exceeds your income, which is the enrollment in revenue, you can't operate, right? It's not a sufficient business model. So they had to shift and pivot. In Kresge, what I learned from this event today is that Kresge didn't originally plan to um, change this into a P20 school. Their original plan was to keep Marygrove College open. So they had a bailout plan to say, all right, what is your budget for a year? We're going to fund you for a year and let's see how that goes. They quickly found out that no amount of money was going to allow the school to stay open just because enrollment was down. If you're from Detroit, and I'll kind of show you guys, I want to go to Google Maps to kind of like give an understanding of perspective of where this is located at. This is Detroit. Here's 8 Mile, Illinois, and the Marygrove campus is located between 6 Mile and it's on 6 Mile between Wyoming and Illinois. Here is the Marygrove Conservancy, and then here's University. Here's U of D, University of Detroit Mercy, and right down the street is Marygrove Conservancy. So if you kind of think about it, these schools are kind of competing for enrollment, both neighborhood colleges, and enrollment was down at this campus. And so instead of allowing this campus to close, they turned it to a P20, which they partnered with Michigan University to have that college curriculum. Now, this campus, I work at this campus right now. This is a beautiful campus. I used to my grandmother lives in this neighborhood. I would ride past this campus all the time. And I was just telling somebody today that my level of appreciation for this campus wasn't as high as it is now. I just didn't think I had the perspective and context that I do now. But if you go into these buildings, you'll see that these buildings are one of a kind. You don't see buildings being built like this. And some of the comments that came from this meeting was that Kresge announced that they will be building their headquarters here on campus. You can't see it in this image here, but there is a vacant lot. They use it for athletic sports, football to the left, and they plan to build basically $100+ million headquarters on the Marygrove campus. And so what does that do for Detroit? I'm gonna just go back to the map really quick. Imagine spinning, right? This is called, and I thought I had it up, but I'm gonna pull it up really shortly. Something we have in Detroit, which is called a strategic neighborhood fund. And so when you think about strategic neighborhood, it's basically the neighborhoods that the city of Detroit has identified as areas of opportunity where they are going to steer investment to. And you see 6 Mile in Livernois is one of them, right? This is the Livernois McNichols. We call it 6 Mile, but formerly named as McNichols. And so a lot of investment has already been poured into Livernois, the Livernois corridor. McNichols, there is investment, but it hasn't spurred a lot of investment. And I believe that's a variety of different reasons. One, viability of projects. Two, private owners not really moving forward with significant capital improvements to their projects. There has been some infrastructure improvement to the McNichols corridor, which some people say they like it, some people say they don't. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of McNichols. I personally don't like driving down the 2-lane street. It just feels a lot congested. But what does that $100 million do for this neighborhood? Imagine, usually $100 million investment, usually a project of that size is not centrally located in neighborhoods. A project that size is usually located downtown, midtown. So this is probably one of the largest neighborhood development projects that is going to happen. So imagine putting $100 million in the center of a neighborhood, and you can only imagine what will that do, what economic impact that will have on the corridors. Here's what I imagine, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. I imagine that with them putting $100 million on this Marygrove campus, not only to build their headquarters, but to also make campus improvements. Some of their initiatives was to, allow the Marygrove campus to be more public accessible. They wanted to add an art component to it, which, that's huge in our current industry. There's people like to incorporate art into their projects. It has this intrinsic value, and it also looks dope and pretty nice. So they plan to invest $100 million in this specific campus, and this is what I imagine is going to happen. This whole corridor will be impacted by that $100 million development, because one of their other initiatives is that they wanted to focus on corridor development. Right, you have 3 major corridors right here. You have Wyoming, McNichols, and Livernois. Now, Livernois has made a lot of progress, right? Between Livernois 6 Mile and 8 Mile, there's a significant amount of progress on the corridor. And me personally, I would say this is probably one of the more vibrant corridors with a lot of walkable, accessible stores that people frequently visit, right? So I would say Livernois has made a lot of progress, but 7 Mile hasn't, right? 6 Mile is lagging. Wyoming is far behind. And with that $100 million and their additional investment that I would imagine, because not only is Kresge going to put money into this Marygrove campus, they also want to see neighborhoods be developed, corridors be developed. So they're going to definitely put millions of dollars into this corridor, where 6 Mile or McNichols, formerly known as, you'll see more projects being developed on the Wyoming, 6 Mile, and Livernois corridor to really, beautify not only the Marygrove campus, but the adjacent neighborhoods as well too. They also have dollars being allocated to neighborhood improvements. And when I mean neighborhood improvements, I'm talking about residential housing. And so for those of you that don't know a lot about this zip code, which is 48221, the neighborhood that Marygrove Conservancy sits in is called the Fitzgerald neighborhood. This is called Fitzgerald. Now, behind Marygrove, there has been a significant I don't want to say significant, but there has been better improvements directly behind Marygrove. Now to the right of it, this neighborhood is lagging. There was an initiative to develop this neighborhood some years ago, and it hasn't had a lot of it hasn't had a lot of significant investment. This neighborhood has constantly lagged. This is probably the least improved neighborhood in this area, right? And so you have really, really good. I would say this neighborhood is probably one of the densely populated and has the most wealth per capita in this specific neighborhood, because you have really good neighborhoods. You have the Bagley neighborhood, you have the University District, you have the Martin Park neighborhood, and Sherwood Forest, Palmer Woods, Green Acres. And for context, on average, I would say homes in this Bagley area are selling for, somewhere between $200,000 and $350,000. This neighborhood, they're selling somewhere between, low threes to sixes. This neighborhood, there's probably 2 to 330, and just so on and so forth. This is in a historic district, Sherwood Forest, Green Acres, and some of the most wealthiest homes in the Detroit market is in Palmer Woods. If you just look up houses in Palmer Woods, you have mansions sitting directly in Palmer Woods, $15 million mansions, $1 million mansions. And so you can kind of get a context of what kind of neighborhood this is. But, right, this neighborhood has seen some growth and seen a lot of impact, but there's still a lot more to do. And so they plan to not only support corridors, also to support neighborhood development by investing in people that own homes, helping them to improve their homes, and also just doing some development around the neighborhood. So let's just take a quick look at this article, right? They're planning to invest $180 million over the next 5 years. So again, this won't happen overnight. They announced it today. I would imagine they've already kind of flushed out some ideas of what they want to do. But this is going to be a 5-year journey of them spending $100 million over the next 5 years. I would imagine their first initiative will be to really kind of flush out their idea for the headquarters, and then really start to figure out what the neighborhood impact looks like. And so you have some comments from a variety of different people. The first person was CEO Rip Rasmussen. He says, in the last number of years, it's become clear that so much of our ability to have credibility in our work in any city means that you're a part of the city. You have to be able to walk your talk, he said. We've also seen sort of the enormous benefit of having this facility, where there's enormous energy around our staff. People want to work here. They want to be in the city, right? This, again, Kresge is currently located in Detroit, Michigan. They do a lot of investment in Detroit, and they're bringing their headquarters back to be centrally focused in Detroit, to continue their investment and continue their impact. Kresge was founded in 1924. Something that stood out significantly for me when I was at this event is that the beneficiaries and the trustees of the Kresge Foundation today are the great grandchildren of the person that started the Kresge Foundation. Like, how many generations is that, right? You got, oh man, that's probably 5 generations of people that benefited off of the backs of one person. So that just kind of goes to show that, all of your efforts that you're doing today, they will benefit you and you will see some fruits of your labor. But think about the next 5 generations that could benefit from your efforts today and what they'll be able to do with what you've done today, tomorrow. Let's continue to read. Here's another shot of the campus. The image I showed at the beginning is here. This is the current building you were seeing in the first image. This is the Madam Cadillac. This is where some of the University of Michigan students house. And this here is where you see the headquarters will be built. So it's perfectly located for them to build a nice facility that will be able to accommodate a many of programming, resources, and whatever they want to bring to this campus, right? Let's continue to scroll. Let's see. Of the new commitment, 130 million will support construction of a new headquarters on the They're going to build $130 million new construction headquarters. I'm gonna put that in context for y'all, right? The firm I work with, we're building a $10 million 30 unit building that has about I would say 5,000 square feet of commercial space. And that was 10 million. They're going to do 10 times that, 13 times that. That's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. Absolutely. Comments from Rip. He says, we're working deeply with the Conservancy to figure out what that might involve in terms of taking out some of the concrete, taking out some of the parking, enhancing pedestrian flow so that it seems like a walkable, accessible, publicly oriented facility. I'm going to scroll up real quick. This facility is currently gated. It doesn't feel out of reach to the public, but it is gated. It does have security. It is a private property. And so if I was someone that didn't have the level of access that I had to the property where I can come and go, you know, from someone on the outside looking in, I would definitely say that this is a private property and I don't belong. And so they want to open it up to the public. That's their vision. They want to open this up to the public and allow people to be able to have public access to this new community that they'll be building. Let's see. Some more comments from Rip. He says, in just 7 short years, Marygrove has become home to a vibrant and ever-growing community of early learners, K through 12 students, and families who see this campus as a place of possibility. They turned a college campus into a place where your child can essentially go from K to 12 and some of college. So if I was living in this neighborhood, this would be significantly beneficial for me because, you know, most of the time when you have students graduating from elementary to middle school to high school, what's happening is that they're transitioning from new schools to new staff, to new systems, to new people, to new programming, to new policies. Instead, your child can literally start here from K and go all the way to college with a system and programming and policies and education that will be consistent throughout. And their education really stems around the STEM, right? Engineering, science, technical background. And so let's continue to read. It says another 50 million will go to the community efforts informed through years of community engagement, Kresge said. So what that means, right? That means is that community engagement is really significant and it's really important when you're doing development to make sure you're engaging the community to get feedback around the things that you're trying to implement in the neighborhoods that they live in, right? It will be not beneficial to just build something without asking the community for their feedback, because a lot of times it's what the community and the community will benefit from whatever you build. So you need their input. And a lot of times when you're getting public and private dollars and you need the support of city officials and government and different departments to be able to help you get your project done, you don't want to have, community organizations going against you because they haven't bought into the vision. So a lot of times when you're doing a large investment, when you're doing development that changes the landscape and impact of any neighborhood you're in, you should definitely be doing community engagement. it goes a long way. Trust me. It says this foundation will also provide support for wealth building, commercial corridor revitalization, small business, and the extension of the Ella Fitzgerald Greenway east to Livernois Avenue and other public space enhancements. What are they saying? This is basically saying that they are going to have programs that are going to be geared towards, basically, like I kind of highlighted earlier. Wealth building happens in different forms, right? Most of the time, most people wealth comes from assets that you own, comes from the home that you live in. And so there'll be a wealth building opportunity from helping, creating programs that will help people to assist in capital improvements, roofs, windows, right? You name it, things to help improve and increase the value of your home. And then also, I would imagine they're also going to have some programs centered around initiatives that will allow people to take advantage of some of their program dollars to invest in their companies, small businesses, nonprofits, right? They're going to put together a programming that would allow someone to be able to build wealth. When you say the extension of the Ella Fitzgerald Greenway, I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about that, but the Greenway is essentially I can't remember how many miles is it. I believe it's 33 miles, something like that, something really significant that flows. It's essentially a large circle that flows throughout Detroit, and it's basically accessible to the public, pedestrian traffic, biking, walking, running, and it's supposed to significantly draw a lot of development along the Greenway. And I think, from what I've seen, the Greenway is a really significant project that Detroit has really been focusing on, and I'll kind of talk about that in the next slide here. But it also says what other comments do they have? It says the new funding commitments in Kresge move back to Detroit represents the third phase of its support in Northwest Detroit. They will build on Kresge's more than decade-long support of a cradle to career education curriculum at Marygrove and early efforts it funded in the Livernois McNichols area, with grants and loan guarantees totaling $196 million to date. They've already invested $196 million into this neighborhood. So of course, you understand the significance. Although it's good business to, bring their headquarters to this specific neighborhood, they're also protecting their investment. Let's be honest. Why not bring our headquarters where we have $196 million of investment already to even spur more development and have more impact and double down on what we've already been doing in this specific neighborhood by bringing our headquarters there? It says, so this happened back in 2018. Kresge announced $50 million grant to support a building effort to create a new educational, economic, and civic anchor for the neighborhood by converting the former Marygrove College into a P20 campus with students from preschool through college age attending school there. Right? They spent $50 million to basically reconfigure this formerly college and change the use of it to something that, could be beneficial not only to college students, but to individuals that are currently going through the education system. I'm just going through my notes here to see some of the things that also came up. And that's it, y'all. That's really it for Kresge in the news today. Highlighting that Kresge, this is actually huge. I'm gonna call it what it is. Kresge bringing their headquarters, to the inner city of Detroit is huge, because what people thought Kresge would do when they say, "Hey, we're bringing our headquarters back to Detroit," right? They thought that Kresge would be taking their headquarters downtown, because that's where all the development is happening. That's where all the dollars are being spent. That's where billions and billions of dollars are being spent around infrastructure, new schooling, expansions of colleges, new public infrastructure. And so why not be down there? And instead of instead of going along with what's already, what's already having a lot of progress, Detroit hasn't really seen as much development as Detroit neighborhoods haven't seen a significant amount of development as downtown. And this is Kresge's statement to say, hey, we're invested in Detroit, and we're not only invested in Detroit, but we're invested in the neighborhoods, right? Because although you have a significant improvement to downtown, although you have, you're creating this entertainment hub with four sports athletic teams being within a half a mile radius, within walking distance. What about the neighborhoods, right? So they're being thoughtful to say, all right, you got the downtowns already keep having a lot of momentum. What about the neighborhoods? And I commend Kresge for making a significant investment in this specific neighborhood, because it's going to really be a proof of concept of how you can do place-based development around the world, where you can develop neighborhoods and not only focus on these major corridors like a downtown, like a midtown, but you can have a lot of significant impact in these smaller neighborhoods where development is lagging, right? Where we need more infrastructure improvement. We need more small business support. We need better corridors where people just don't have to go to the suburbs for their local amenities, or go downtown to, partake in some of the entertainment. No, they can live, eat, breathe, work in their neighborhoods. And I think that's significant. And I believe that's, we'll see how this all pan out, but I believe that's what will happen when Kresge start to build on their momentum and actually bring their headquarters here. You're going to see a significant amount of development that's going to follow along from their investment. All right, y'all, let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is, and it's a follow along, is that, nearly $20 million in grants to support Detroit neighborhoods. So the Knight Foundation, which is another foundation, right? This conversation is about foundations, investing money, investing their philanthropy dollars in communities to support and spur a lot of development and impact. I kind of talked about this earlier. Joe Louis Greenway. Here is one image of the Joe Louis Greenway that is located on Tire Avenue and Joy Road. Excuse me. From what I remember about this specific neighborhood is that this Greenway was formerly a abandoned waste field. And instead of leaving it as a waste field, they moved out all the waste and turned it into a trail where people can walk, people can trail, people can use their bikes. It's more of something that can be utilized from the public community. And let's continue this article. So the Knight Foundation has invested $19.8 million into Detroit neighborhoods. We saw what Kresge doing. Kresge investing 180. Knight is investing $20 million. And below, it'll kind of show what the Knight Foundation has put their money to. But let's get to that point. But here's some comments. It says, Detroit has always been a city of resilience, reinvention. That's the president and CEO of the foundation. Absolutely, right? Detroit has came a long way. Detroit is one of those cities that everybody now wants to invest here, right? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. You see a lot of development, and a lot of them have been coming to the city. And what I believe is just that it's just a huge opportunity it's like a blank canvas, right? Detroit, if you go to any other major city, like a Charlotte, like an Atlanta, like a Houston, size-wise, Detroit is almost 2 to 3 times size these other cities, but we don't have the amenities as these other cities. We don't have the advancements that other cities has had, and it's almost a blank canvas for any corporation or any any other developer to come here, because we're building basically everything from scratch. But let's continue some of the comments. It says our latest investments support Detroit that will continue to be shaped by creativity, talent, and vision of its residents. Whether it's transforming public spaces along the Joe Louis Greenway, expanding local residents' economic power in tech, or strengthening the city's creative economy, these efforts reflect the energy of a city on its triumph rise. I agree. Now, what I know about Knight Foundation, they're formally invest in, what you will find out is that various foundations have various program and investment guidelines. And so if you're looking to get some support from a foundation, you should be clear on what their guidelines are. Some of them invest in small businesses, some of them invest in art related projects, some of them, only want to give money to nonprofits. A lot of this stuff is usually on their website, and you'll find that different foundations do different things. They focus on different things, but they all are really focused around significant amount of impact wherever they're doing a lot of investment. Let's continue to read. The foundation has been at the table in the revitalization of the city and its downtown for years, she said, pointing to, among other things, its $30 million commitment to the Grand Bargain. The Grand Bargain, for many of you that don't know, was basically, the bankruptcy bargain. For a while, Detroit went through a bankruptcy, and a variety of different philanthropies and foundations and other constituencies came together to negotiate the Grand Bargain that shored up a variety of different things in Detroit, but this one specifically was Detroit Pensions Funds, and also spun off the Detroit Institution of Arts from the city to protect its collection during the city's bankruptcy. That's pretty cool to read about. Okay, here's something else to be aware of. The neighborhood that the foundation is really focused on is the North End, and I'll kind of show you what that neighborhood looks like. I'm gonna just zoom out from the 6 Mile, Illinois neighborhood to kind of go over to the North End neighborhood, which is, for context purposes, downtown is here. This would be Midtown-ish. This is Henry Ford, Pistons area, Midtown-ish. And then you have the North End. So the North End, there's been some significant investment in the North End as well too. It's right of Woodward. The North End is essentially where the Q line, which is a transit rail that stops just north of the Grand Boulevard. So you've seen some significant development over here. We've actually supported a portfolio company within this neighborhood to build, some multifamily residential units. So development is happening, and that's basically what the Knight Foundation is saying that they're focused on. They're focused on developing the North End. So let's get back to the article. Okay, here's the kind of the breakdown of where money has flowed to from their investment. It says two of the grants in its latest round of funding are to nonprofits it has supported in the past. There are $2 million in grants to the Museum of Contemporary Art to activate flexible indoor-outdoor community space, and $2 million to Vanguard Community Development Corp to support completion of the North End Community Campus as a civic and cultural anchor for the neighborhood. Okay, so they spent about $4 million there. Of that $19.8 million, $5 million went to the Greenway. $2 million went to the Joe Louis Greenway to activate a trailhead at Woodward. Another $2 million went to Black Tech Saturdays, which is a local organization that has events on Saturdays to really talk about tech, entrepreneurship, tech jobs, and it's really, assisting with changing the narrative and exposing individuals to more tech-related jobs, tech-related occupations. Let's see, $1.5 million to East Community Network to complete a 9-acre environmental. So they're investing, right? They're investing. What you can see is that they're investing into organizations that are already doing the work. They're putting dollars to organizations that have already had a significant amount of momentum and it's more of a follow on. Like most of these organizations have already existed and have already made a significant amount of impact in the community. And so that's their goal, right? How do we continue to support the people that are already doing the work so that they can continue to do the work and do more work? And that's kind of what you see here. And so that's really the video I wanted to talk about today. Really just what's happening in Detroit. There are foundations that are putting money into Detroit, that are supporting Detroit. And a lot of times these philanthropy dollars are, when a foundation make an investment, it's a long-term investment, right? Because they're baking their investment on a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year horizon, right? Most of this money is grant dollars or either low-cost capital. So they're not getting a significant return on their investment because it's not really to get an investment in ROI. Is more so how do we create impact? How do we have systemic impact by driving dollars to specific organizations that are already doing the work to follow on and to create more impact and to just allow people to kind of broaden their horizon. So that's what's going on today, y'all. We'll catch up tomorrow and see what's going on in the news. All right, y'all. Peace.